everyone. Welcome back to VeloView, your ultimate destination for everything automotive, where passion and performance collide and where we dive deep into the cars that shaped the world of driving. Today, we're taking a journey back to the golden age of motoring to talk about one of the most striking, most innovative, and most unforgettable cars to ever come out of Britain, the Lotus Esprit. This car, first conceived in the early 1970s, redefined what a sports car could be by proving that speed wasn't just about power, it was about precision, lightness, and balance. It's a story of vision, innovation, and a design that stood the test of time. So sit back, relax, and let's take a ride through the legacy of the 1970s Lotus Esprit. When the Lotus Esprit first came into the spotlight, the automotive world was filled with loud, heavy, and powerful machines from Italy and Germany. But Lotus, led by the brilliant Colin Chapman, had a very different idea of performance. Chapman believed that the true essence of speed came from lightness and agility, not brute force. His famous motto, "Simplify, then add lightness," became the guiding principle behind the Esprit. The goal was to create a car that didn't just move fast in a straight line, but one that danced through corners with precision and grace. That philosophy became the very heart of the Esprit and helped it stand out in a world dominated by Ferrari and Porsche. The Esprit's design began in the early 1970s when Lotus teamed up with Italian designer Giorgetto Giugiaro from Edeldesign. Giugiaro, already known for his futuristic ideas, gave the Esprit one of the most striking silhouettes of its time. The sharp wedge shape, sleek lines, pop-up headlights, and low-slung stance made it look more like a spaceship than a car. It debuted as a concept at the 1972 Turin Motor Show, and people were immediately captivated by its modern, angular look. By the time it went into production a few years later, the design was already a masterpiece, one that perfectly captured the futuristic spirit of the 1970s. Even now, decades later, that wedge profile remains one of the most recognizable and influential shapes in automotive history. Underneath that stunning exterior was a chassis and engineering setup that truly showcased Lotus's brilliance. The Esprit used a steel backbone chassis, a design Lotus had perfected in earlier models like the Europa. On top of that was a lightweight fiberglass body that kept the car's weight under 1,000 kilograms. Power came from a 2.0-liter inline-4 engine that produced around 160 horsepower. That may not sound like much today, but because of the Esprit's featherweight design, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds, impressive for its time. More importantly, the Esprit wasn't built for straight-line speed, it was built to handle like a dream. The mid-engine layout gave the car near-perfect weight distribution, and when you sat behind the wheel, you could feel that balance in every turn. The steering was razor-sharp, the feedback immediate, and the suspension made the car hug the road with precision. It wasn't about electronic driver aids or fancy computer systems, there were none. It was just pure, mechanical communication between driver and machine. The Esprit demanded skill, and when driven properly, it rewarded you with one of the most immersive driving experiences imaginable. It felt alive, unpredictable, and utterly thrilling. Inside the cabin, the Esprit was unapologetically driver-focused. The seating position was low, the cockpit tight, and the controls were laid out for performance rather than comfort. It wasn't luxurious in the traditional sense, and space was limited, but that didn't matter. What mattered was how connected you felt. Sitting inside the Esprit was like stepping into a fighter jet. Everything about it reminded you that this was a car built for those who love to drive. The materials might not have been top-notch, but the feeling of control made up for every shortcoming. In 1977, the Lotus Esprit became a global icon thanks to its unforgettable appearance in the James Bond movie The Spy Who Loved Me. When Roger Moore's Bond drove the Esprit off a pier and transformed it into a submarine, it instantly secured a place in cinematic and automotive history. That scene wasn't just special effects, it was a statement. It showed that the Esprit wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of innovation, style, and British ingenuity. From that point forward, the Esprit wasn't just admired by enthusiasts, it became a cultural phenomenon. Throughout the late 1970s and into the 1980s, the Esprit continued to evolve. Lotus refined its design, improved reliability, and introduced turbocharged versions that significantly boosted power. The Esprit Turbo of the early 1980s made around 210 horsepower and could challenge contemporary rivals from Porsche and Ferrari. Despite being a small manufacturer with limited resources, Lotus continued to punch far above its weight. Every update brought sharper performance and more refined engineering, while still staying true to the core philosophy of lightweight, driver-focused performance. Driving a Lotus Esprit today is like traveling back in time to an era when cars had soul. It's not the easiest car to live with, the steering is heavy at low speeds, visibility is limited, and maintenance can be tricky, but once you get it out on an open road, all those flaws fade away. You feel every vibration, hear every sound, and sense every movement through the seat and steering wheel. It's a raw, emotional experience that modern cars, with all their digital filters and safety nets, simply can't replicate. The Esprit demands respect, but in return, it gives something even rarer, a genuine connection between human and machine. Of course, the Esprit wasn't perfect. Being a hand-built British sports car, it had its fair share of issues. Electrical problems, fragile interiors, and occasional mechanical gremlins were part of the ownership experience. But to enthusiasts, those quirks were just part of the charm. They gave the car personality. Owning a Lotus Esprit wasn't about perfection, it was about passion. Every drive felt like an event, every repair a labor of love. The legacy of the Esprit is enormous. It showed that innovation and clever engineering could rival brute force and big budgets. It inspired generations of lightweight sports cars and even influenced supercar design across Europe. Lotus managed to keep the Esprit in production for nearly 3 decades, constantly refining it while staying faithful to its roots. Even the final versions built in the early 2000s carried the DNA of that original 1970s vision: lightweight, precise, and endlessly rewarding. Today, the 1970s Lotus Esprit is more than just a collector's car, it's a symbol of an era when cars were pure, when design was bold, and when driving was a craft. It's a piece of automotive art that captures everything great about classic motoring. Whether you admire it for its design, its engineering, or its cinematic fame, the Esprit stands as a reminder that true greatness isn't about numbers, it's about emotion. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the timeless beauty of the 1970 Lotus Esprit. A car that wasn't just built, it was crafted with passion, intelligence, and a relentless pursuit of driving perfection. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more stories about legendary cars that shaped the automotive world, don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to VeloView for more detailed reviews, car histories, and driving inspiration. Until next time, keep the wheels turning and the passion alive.